Stop. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you could get to your seats, we're just about ready to start here, and we've got a completely full house tonight. So if you can see a seat, just head for it. I don't know how many we have left. Yeah, there's seats up front. Oh, there's Chris. Okay. And Jerry somewhere in here. Okay. Is Liza here? Okay. Let's get them. Let's get them all up here so we can. Not you. Not you. Yeah. Just on the side. Just on the sides. You stay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the California Surf Museum. We have a great show tonight. How many of you out there are members? Can I see? Wow. Well, if you aren't a member, I'd really like to ask you to be one. We really, really appreciate the support that all of our members give us. It allows us to do what we're doing tonight, which is something that you don't get anywhere, where you get to actually sit and talk with people who have been part of the legacy of surfing for the last, I hate to say it, 50 years, but it is. And tonight we have a really, really great program. We have a book that many of you have bought. I hope we have some more left, but we'll get them if you don't, so you can come back if they're sold out. But we have a book, Surfer Stories, that was edited and put together with this young lady right here. And we have an entire, yes, Claudia Lebenthal. And the number of, she cajoled a number of people to write stories about some of the best surfers in the world. Some of them are here tonight, and some of them even wrote about the other people that they know. So you'll have a really interesting group. I'm going to turn it over to Claudia to give you a little bit of an introduction to what you're going to see and what you're going to hear tonight. So please give a welcome to Claudia Lebenthal.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. This is incredibly exciting. The book in itself, getting 12 different writers to write about 12 surfers. Untold stories. We've got 6 of them here tonight. We've got Sean Thompson. We've got Chad Nelson. We've got Gerry Lopez somewhere. We've got Chris Carter. We've got Liza Monroy. And we've got, of course, Jim Kempton, our host. So we are going to have a little chat. Everyone's going to read a bit from their stories. And I'm going to ask them a few questions. And you're going to really learn even more than what is in the book. So it's really exciting. Thank you all.
Gabe, can you hit the lights? Where's our audio? Oh, okay, stop. We're going to start over. We had the sound playing all day.
Left-hand side.
No, left hand. No, it's on. No, that's this, though.
It's in the bar.
I know. Hang on, guys. So, here, keep talking.
Hi, everyone. I know.
Okay,
I don't want to spoil what you're going to see.
Hang on, guys. We've only played this through a dozen times already.
All right.
Let's see, it's no, because it's on the. Wait, hang on.
See over here? Just
I know. I got to make sure it's on here. This is where you can get it. Okay, kids.
Surfing has an allure, a mystique, that captivates people even if they don't surf. To see the ocean rising up, cresting into a wave, curling over as a surfer rides down its face and tucks into a spiraling barrel of water is mesmerizing. Surfers make it look effortless, like something anyone can do, or at least imagine they could. These are 12 of their stories. 12 stories by 12 writers about 12 of the world's greatest surfers. They are the pioneers and legends of the sport who made their mark on surf history, distinguished by their fearlessness and artistry, displayed riding the most exalted waves. But how do you choose just 12 surfers when there are infinitely more legends in the sport? You don't. You pick 12 writers and let them choose the surfer whose story they want to tell. The story of how many of these writers got on board are as good as some of the stories themselves. My goal from the start was to create a book about surfing that would appeal equally to those who surf and those who don't, by simply telling great human stories. They are as much about the writer as the surfer, and I guarantee there is at least one story for every person who reads this book who will feel a connection to one of these surfers, because the story will speak to them as personally as it did to the writer who told it. Thank you to all of my writers for the surfers you chose. I could not have picked a more perfect group of 12 to represent the sport.
So,
Gabe Lights.
I'm going to have all my writers and surfers come on up here and take a seat. Need my panel up here. We do need lights. There we go. All right.
Hi, nice to meet you. Liza. Great to meet you.
Getting it together here. All righty. Welcome everyone again. Welcome to this gang of incredible surfers. Right, Gerry, all right there? You got what you need? You good?
Okay.
You comfy? All right. Look at them all packed together. Wow. So 12 surfers, 12 writers, 12 of the world's greatest surfers. You saw the panel at the end scroll, but I'm just going to read who wrote what about who. Garrett McNamara by Gerry Lopez. Gerry Lopez by Jim Kempton. Rel Sun by Karen Rinaldi. Laird Hamilton by Sam George. Derek Hind by Jamie Brisick. Sean Thompson by Chris Carter. Keala Kennelly by Liza Monroy. Robert Wingnut Weaver by Holly Peterson. Bethany Hamilton by Brett Crozier. Michael February by Salema Mesakala. Tom Curren by Chris Shiflett. And Kelly Slater by Sean Thompson. Quite a group. We've got 6 of them here tonight. Chris Carter, Liza Monroy, Sean Thompson, Gerry Lopez, Jim Kempton, and Chad Nelson. Chad Nelson, CEO of Surfrider, who wrote an incredible afterword to the book, perfectly bookending Gerry's opening. So, as I mentioned, the writers chose the surfers. I did not. I had a list, but every one of these people here said without hesitation, I have a surfer whose story I want to tell. And they're stories. They're not biographies. There's something special I know about, untold, that I'm going to share with you. So you really have an insider's look into the life of these surfers. So I'm going to start with Gerry, yes, on Garrett, because Gerry's was the first story to come in, And it starts off with this incredible description of how waves are formed. That it's kind of like, well, without that, nobody's surfing. So it was a perfect, perfect opening. What I love is Gerry has this incredible style. I mean, Gerry, who you all know, the inimitable Mr. Pipeline, the style not to be matched. He wanted to write about his friend, Garrett McNamara. And that's what leads off the book. Gerry's writing really puts you on the waves with Garrett in a play-by-play kind of way that has you on the edge of your seat. It is action-packed writing, and he's actually going to read a little bit from that. Would you, Gerry?
I am.
Yeah, that what you have in your hand. He knows this.
Garrett McNamara by who?
I don't know, some guy, some surfer.
Well, you'll have to get the book, but this is just a little part of it. So, Garrett had partnered with Brazilian Rodrigo Rezende for the Jaws event. In tow-in surfing, two surfers partner up. One drives the jet ski while the other surfs. For the contest, the first surfer rides 3 waves, then the partners switch off for the next surfer to get his 3. Rodrigo would be in the water first, with Garrett driving the ski. They were doing fine in the first heat until Rodrigo went down attempting a deep tube. Garrett zoomed in to rescue Rodrigo, but he was late, as Rodrigo didn't come up until the next wave was almost on him. These are very big waves, 30 to 40 feet high, breaking in relatively shallow water, only 25 to 30 feet deep. The turbulence was tremendous, worse than in any other spot. Garrett knew in an instant that he was in trouble. The propulsion system of a jet ski works by pushing a high-powered jet of water, sucking the water in one end with an impeller that forces it out through the smaller nozzle on the back to power the ski and allow steering. But in white water, which is quite aerated and agitated, water is not pulled into the system. There is no action, and therefore no reaction. In other words, nothing happens. The ski doesn't go. Garrett's rescue attempt was directly in front, 20 plus feet of white water. The ski cavitated in the foamy water, the looming mountain of the breaking wave bearing down on them. Both realized what was happening. Rodrigo did the only thing he could think of, knowing he was out of breath from the terrific pounding he had just taken, but hoping to save the ski so Garrett could come back and get him. He pushed off the back of the jet ski's rescue sled and shoved the ski away. Rodrigo slid beneath the surface, but an avalanche of white water hit the ski, flinging it 20 feet into the air. The owner of the ski, Garrett's friend Roy Patterson, had tricked it out. Cool sound system, rod holders for fishing, and foot straps, just like on the tow boards, in which Garrett had his feet firmly secured. Somehow, by the grace of God, after he was flung up, he stayed centered on the ski, came back down, landed flat, and gassing it with all his might, he managed to escape the torrent and survive what easily could have been the end of the ski and their day. Rodrigo, meanwhile, was pulled from the white water by another ski. Now it was Garrett's turn on the rope. When the surfer is paddling, constant maneuvering for position is required to be in the right place at the perfect moment. All of it happening moment by moment, attention totally focused on each moment, no moments open for idle thoughts. With the tow rope, however, the jet ski driver does much of the positioning for his rider. There are times when the surfer is just hanging onto the handle, maybe thinking how he blew the last wave. Weak, negative thoughts can easily sap his strength and focus. Garrett had been here too many times before. He knew what he had to do. Steer his thinking back to more powerful, positive thoughts and the job at hand. Garrett gets 3 waves. Each one builds his confidence for the next. And then on the last one, right at the very last seconds of the heat, Garrett puts it all together. It's not the biggest wave, but he fades deep, comes hard off the bottom, snaps a sharp cut back under the lip, and rides it like he owns the place, just so smooth, confident, and composed. Getting the ski into the water that morning at the tiny boat ramp at Maliko Gulch, the closest launch to Jaws, had been completely challenging, the surf surge on the verge of swamping the truck and trailer. The takeout was no less so, but the distraction was welcome as Garrett's mind buzzed with the thoughts of their performance, second-guessing each decision over the course of the day until it began to make him crazy. Somewhere along the way, one of the event volunteers informed him and Rodrigo that they had won. Garrett remembers walking away from everyone, thinking about all the hard work, sacrifices, emotions, and everything else that he'd gone through to reach this moment. He called his wife and burst into tears.
Gerry, thank you. I mean, you're really there on the waves. And I remember asking Gerry, to fill in some blanks for people that didn't surf to understand that pair of, how does the jet ski and the surfer work? I think it's something we all take for granted. So I really wanted this book to appeal to both surfers and non-surfers alike. Gerry, so you wanted to write about Garrett. He's your friend. The story's called Keep Paddling, which I know is really a motto for you. How did that really apply to Garrett, and what did you sort of want us to know about him that they might not know?
Well, I've known Garrett since, Sean and I have known Garrett since him and his brother were little kids on the North Shore trying to break into the whole scene. They all wanted to become sponsored surfers and get paid to go surfing, and it's not easy thing to do, but they accomplished that. And generally, a shelf life for a sponsored surfer is until the next young hotshot comes along. And, sometimes that's not so long. But Garrett managed to kind of reinvent himself, and he had like a second career that was way bigger than his first one. I mean, way bigger. Garrett McNamara is like a legend in Europe. The Europeans really revere their sports figures, and because he pioneered that wave in Portugal, Nazaré, probably more non-surfing people in Europe know of him than they do here in America. And, the whole idea of the title of the story, Keep Paddling, is in a literal and more of a metaphorical sense that, this is what all of us as surfers kind of do in life, is to just try and keep paddling as best as we can, whether it's out in the surf on our surfboard or back on the beach. So that's
yeah, perfect. And you do that in a couple spots. You make these analogies why surfing is a metaphor for life. Kind of go with the flow, just sort of your stand. Maybe that's your pipeline stance, that cool, easy stance, and calm under pressure when you're getting pounded by waves. A couple people refer to this in the book, like, best thing you gotta do is just chill, because nothing else you can do about it. So Gerry did double duties as surfer and both writer in the book, and there's another one, Sean Thompson, who's both surfer and writer. But I'm actually going to turn you over to Chris Carter first, who wrote about you. So Chris Carter, I don't know if you know who he is, creator of the X-Files, who, yes, everyone knows. And actually, it was David Duchovny, one of the stars, who I happened to know through his wife, ex-wife, and I'd asked him, I wanted someone from Hollywood to write a story, because it's, there's so many great Hollywood movies about surfing, and I was like, does David surf? She was like, I don't know, but call his agent. And so we called his agent, and 2 minutes later, we get this email back, well, no, he doesn't surf and he doesn't want to do it, but Chris Carter does. And I was like, oh, okay. Great. So I was like, I knew. I was like, turned out he started his career at Surfing Magazine. First 8 years. So he actually first profiled Sean Thompson then, and he reprofiles him again 40 years later for the book. So I'm just gonna, that just in itself kind of gives you chills. I mean, 40 years of life, their life, everybody's life is time passes. So I'm gonna ask him to read a little bit his intro. There you go, Chris, you're on.
Let me first say that when I saw the list of surfers, I knew immediately who I wanted to profile, Sean, and not only because I profiled him 40 years ago in Surfing Magazine. He lives in my town. He and I are, buddies. I knew I wouldn't have to travel anywhere. I knew that it was going to be easy money.
And not a lot of money, I have to say.
Okay, so I want to interrupt here. So talking about money, Chris Carter used to work for Surfing Magazine. The publisher was Bob Mignogna. And Bob Mignogna mentioned to me today that he wishes that he'd agreed to your $28,000 raise annually.
That's true. I credit those guys with my Hollywood career because they wouldn't give me a raise.
And I'm going to add one point to that. Your buddy over here, Jim Kempton,
Yes.
apparently said, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think that's going to work out for you. So.
The lesson there is never listen to Jim Kempton.
So there you go. Take it away.
Thank you. Okay, this is my excerpt. This is actually the beginning of the story. Early in my Hollywood career in the mid-1980s, we were auditioning actors for a TV pilot I'd written at NBC. In the middle of the session, the casting director got a call from an agent asking if we might take a look at a client of hers. The agent knew there wasn't a part in the script for a 20-year-old guy, but would we just see him? He's on the studio lot, and you might have something down the line, she said. 10 minutes later, the door opens and a slender young man is invited in. He's got an easy smile, good hair, and a light in his eye. The cliche about producers and directors being stone-faced, tough customers is far from the truth in my experience. Every time an actor reads for a part, you're desperate for them to be the one. You're hoping you can take them to the next level, the network, where they'll agree with you and allow you to book the part. This rarely happens. Money is at stake, and since the network execs are already hedging their bets that you're going to fail, they're always second-guessing you and themselves. The process is blunt and crude. I once witnessed the head of a network turn to his associates after an actress left the room and pose a question. Would you fuck her? There were women execs in the room too, but this was the mid-'80s, almost 40 years ago, when that bullshit flew. And this kid who just walked in the door, he has something, a presence, maybe a slight drawl, and he keeps flashing that sly smile. I can feel the women in the room take special notice, and the actor can too, because he knows what he's selling. He's cute, and he knows he's cute. But cute only lands you on soap operas. This is something else entirely. We say our hellos, where are you from, where'd you go to school, University of Missouri. Showbiz is rife with sexy young beach boys and California girls from Arkansas or Alabama. But if this guy can act, it doesn't matter if he's from Moose Jaw, he's going places. So it was when Brad Pitt left the room. So it was with Sean Thompson, only his instantaneous vault from obscurity to stardom wasn't onto a movie screen, that would come later. It was onto the pages of Surfing Magazine.
What a great.
I am the first man in the world to compare Brad Pitt to Sean Thompson.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk. First of all, I have to say, when Chris sent this in and I was reading it, for some reason I didn't realize he was really talking about Brad Pitt. I thought it was like, so it was when Brad Pitt left the room, like not the room that I was in, but a room. So, anyway, what's so fun about this is we get a little bit
Claudia
here.
fixed it.
Well, I was glad I was like, oh wait, it was really Brad Pitt. Anyway, what is amazing is I am curious. Obviously, Sean, we know your fame on the waves, but you did have a star. What is that star quality? Brad Pitt had this man. We know it's the not decent good looks. Tell us about that star power.
Yeah, sure. A lot of people don't, even though Sean has been in Hollywood movies, a lot of people don't know the pressure that was put on him to take his surf stardom to Hollywood early on. And I think there were meetings at Universal Studios, and there was all kinds of attention put on him to maybe parlay his stardom into, ridiculous Hollywood stardom. But he didn't take the bait, and he suffered ever since.
Yes, clearly his career suffered. But let me ask you, you did profile him 40 years later. Just talk to us a little bit about that, the 40 years of life happening and that experience.
This is in the chapter I wrote too. I profiled Sean in like the winter of '79.
And just say a
maybe
little bit
80.
about like what was really making him and that group of surfers that sort of.
Well,
era.
I mean, Sean was, there wasn't anybody. He was the biggest surf star in the world, even though MR was around and Robert Bartholomew. There were, and Gerry Lopez, who stardom is eternal. Anyway, so I would be sent to the North Shore every winter to write something or other, and as Matt Warshot now calls that material, landfill. I would write those stories. I was an outsider pretending to be an insider, but the winter before, I had actually lived in a tent on Jock Sutherland's mom's property at Jocko's. Audrey Sutherland, who's kind of a great, she's a great story in her own right. Anyway, I had lived in a tent, and so when I got this assignment to write about Sean, one of the best things about it was that Sean invited me to stay at his condo at the Cui Lima. So I was flying high. So whatever Sean said to me, I put down dutifully in the book, in the magazine, and thus we got. Anyway, yeah, it was. That was part of my misspent youth.
Not too bad. And then you revisited him again.
Yeah, it was great.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Truly, it's a beautiful, beautiful story. All right, I'm going to let's get some women here. So I'm going to hand it over to Liza Monroy. So Liza Monroy wrote about Keala Kennelly. Liza came to me. She had heard about the book and got in touch with our publisher and said, I really want to write a story. And she sent me an email, and her signature is a surfboard with a pen. It's somehow a surfboard pen, and I was like, well, that's a no-brainer. So by the time she connected with us, a lot of the surfers had been spoken for, and there were two that I really wanted her to write about. There were two women I really thought, great to have a woman writing about another woman. Lisa Anderson, who, as I say in my introduction, I would have written about had I been asked to write a story for this book. The other was Keala Kennelly. And Liza chose Keala Kennelly, and I'm going to ask you why, but just read a little bit of your story.
Okay, I'll read first and then I'll tell you why. But the first thing I can tell you is it was a little bit opposite to what Chris said. I was like, I'm going to spend all this money and fly to Hawaii and meet Keala, and she's going to take me surfing on some of the biggest bombs I've ever been on. And I got there, and we met in the park, and I saw the water, and I was like, can we surf together? And she was like, oh, that's total crap. I'm not going out there. So we spent like 6 hours in a park instead. But well worth it. And I did get to surf while there and
And you
spend
got
a
this
lot of time
firsthand.
with Kayala. And so I'll share this excerpt tells a little bit about why I wanted to write about her. She recalls women's surf media pioneer Betty DePolito, aka Bonsai Betty, taking her to Chopes for the first time. That's Chopu in Tahiti. She was like, there's this wave in Tahiti. It's right up your alley. I'll take you down there. From that point, Kayala explains, you can't really tell how big a wave is. You're like, is it 2 foot, 20 foot? Because it's so far away. They went out in the boat and got to the lineup. Kayala saw, a quote, a perfect 6-foot wave barrel down the reef and spit. I went, fuck yes. I jumped off the boat. I had a brand new board. I paddled out, so excited, and sat in the lineup right next to Shane Dorian. He's like, hello, KK, charging, huh? I didn't know what he was talking about because I'm like, whatever, it was 6 foot. I just saw the set. She soon realized it was not the set. That was not even a normal wave, she says. It was an in-between wave. I paddled for one of those thinking, this is it. It didn't even break. I turned and saw the entire ocean coming for me. I thought I was gonna die. I paddled as fast as I could to get under the lip before it exploded in front of me. Just barely made it and got sucked over the falls. I got pushed down on the reef and held there. I didn't know which way was up, got spun around, grabbed my leash and pulled it like a ladder to try to get to the surface. When I did, there was just a tiny piece of the tail of my board left. The board had broken into 3 pieces. I grabbed the chunk and paddled this little piece of board as fast as I could to the channel. I was shaking. This is before inflation vests, any kind of equipment, no kind of safety, jet skis, nope. There were a couple boats in the water, and that was it. When a women's event there was announced, she says, I was stoked but a little traumatized. I went back and surfed it. It was pretty big the first day I went back, practicing for the contest. I was nervous as fuck. I got a couple of nice rides, got barreled, and that was just the start of something special. Kayala celebrated 3 more wins there, 2000, 2002, and 2003, the year she was #1 in the WCT rankings. She ended it in 2nd place. Still, it was an epic one. She won the Vans Triple Crown of Surfing, taking the North Shore victories at Hailea, Sunset, and Pipeline, the Billabong Pro at Chopu, the Roxy Pro in Fiji, and the Turtle Bay Pro in Hawaii. She placed 3rd at the Billabong Pro in Maui, and in 2005 became the first woman to toe in at Chopes. Yet, as a closeted gay athlete, she lived in constant fear of being outed and losing her sponsors.
And her worst fears did come true. I'm just going to add one paragraph, which is her fears materialized. She lost 3 out of her 4 sponsors, Vestal, Red Bull, and Spy. It couldn't be called out as discrimination because they wouldn't say, we're dropping you because you're a lesbian, she explains. They'd say, we're dropping you because you're not marketable. It's like, really? Because I just broke this record. I thought it was based on your results, your wins, and your accomplishments. How am I not marketable? I'm an elite athlete doing shit that no other woman was doing. So, Liza, just tell us a little bit why you wanted to write it, and that message there.
Yeah, for me, that part kind of explained why I wanted to include her and be the person to profile her. I just thought, what a chance to give her that recognition. And that's why I took an approach to the story where I toggled between, well, should I put me in it? Because I did go there, and there was like the I sort of element. I was interacting with her. And just hearing her story, which we talked for 6 hours in the park, and I recorded it all, and I was transcribing it, and immediately my journalistic instincts were like, there's no first person in this story. I'm gonna go total profile and just let her tell her story. And I think she did, yeah, it really gave her a chance to have her own story told in her voice in this book, and I really felt like I was a channel or a conduit for her. And I'd always admired the women who I'd read and written about before who formed the Committee for Equity in Women's Surfing and won the Equal Pay for Women and a women's division at Mavericks. They had a lot of victories in this inclusion sphere in surfing, and I just thought, what a person, right? And to go out at Chopes just in a canoe, like begging people to take her out or getting a ride from a guy's ski who took pity on her, she said, and just like what a pioneer, right? So I just thought she was someone whose voice would be really strong to include and to put in the history.
And you really brought that across through your talks with her and your writing about her, and that it is more, she's really a pioneer more than just the big wave riding. You know, she's a pioneer for women's rights, for gay and lesbian rights, for mental health awareness. She's gone through that. So here, having this first person told to you, and the fact that you did take yourself out of the story, but what's beautiful is every one of these writer surfers up here took a different approach. You took a first person approach. You know, they're all really personal, all really different, which is really fun.
I love that so much about the book.
So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to talk to our friend Sean Thompson for a second here. So I'm going to just give him a little introduction. Sean Thompson, who's considered, you know, one of the pioneers of this modern day surf style, this radical, new, aggressive way of surfing these big waves, Pipeline, in Oahu, and Backdoor, and what he did. And before you start reading, what's so fun about this is Sean was the first person I asked to write a story, and he said, "Yeah, but I want to write about Kelly Slater." And it was like, okay, I mean, of course, amazing. It's like, to me, like it's like Jack Nicklaus wanting to write about Tiger Woods. It's, you know, the great of one generation wanting to tell you what makes the next generation's great so special. So I'm going to let him read a little bit now and ask him some questions after.
So I've known Kelly Slater for a long time. I met him in 1989. Well, I thought I met him in 1989. He said, I came to a trade show and I got your autograph when I was a kid in like 1987. Anyway, so this is what I wrote about Kelly. I've admired him greatly. I think his contribution to the sport has been incredible, and I actually think his pure surfing is sometimes overlooked. He has been so incredibly innovative. But some years ago, I drove down from Santa Barbara to the leafy California town of Claremont, through the wide streets bordered by craftsman-style homes, and presented a talk on purpose and performance to the Western Positive Psychology Association at Claremont Graduate University. I had lunch with Professor Emeritus Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, a renowned Hungarian-American psychologist who created the term flow to describe a mental state in which a human performing activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, involvement, and enjoyment in the moment and in the process. According to Csikszentmihalyi, flow is characterized by complete absorption in what one does, often resulting in the loss of a sense of time and self-consciousness. The best athletes experience this rarefied state of complete focus on their performance with no attention to distractions or irrelevant thoughts. The mind is wholly occupied by the activity, contributing to enhanced performance. Athletes in flow feel a sense of elation and fulfillment. They experience heightened enjoyment and satisfaction in their performance, further fueling their commitment and concentration. Activities seem spontaneous and effortless. This dude knows what I'm talking about. Athletes feel as though they are in the zone, and their movements and decisions come naturally, without forced effort. In a flow state, athletes lose awareness of themselves as separate from the activity they are performing, feeling as though time has either sped up or slowed down. Over the last 50 years, I've watched many of the greatest athletes with an appreciation for their commitment, instincts, fire, technique, and talent. Only the very best seem to be able to click into flow at will, that elevated state of consciousness necessary to perform beyond their perceived best. In my assessment, Kelly Slater is an absolute master of flow, a unique and extraordinary athlete deeply and intimately connected to the rhythm and flow of the ocean, his consciousness, and the people in his orbit. In all the world's sports, surfing stands alone for its unpredictability and vastness, unbounded by white lines of demarcation. A surfer standing atop an ever-changing medium, balanced upon an invisible pulse of energy. Maneuvers and techniques have evolved over the last 30 years, but the essential DNA of truly great surfing is unchanged. A few simple words define its essence: speed, power, rhythm, aggression, style, and imagination. Kelly Slater has all this, and he has that extra chromosome of intuition, a knowingness, a prescient reactivity to the ebb and flow of the ocean. In competition, his wave selection is uncanny, inextricably linked to a connectivity and understanding of the ocean's energy while he is in the moment, in his flow state. And this is Kelly's words. So many things in nature resemble a tube, a tornado, or a hurricane, or a galaxy. It's a natural sort of shape. And they say that the eye of the hurricane is the safest place to be. And the tube is really the eye of the hurricane in the water. But then you have the foam ball, or tube monster, as we call it, always trying to get you. And if you can flirt with that and play with that, that's really the ultimate barrel ride. To be able to ride on the foam ball and have your tail drift out and still have that wave pushing you along. It's really the ultimate feeling of surfing. That and just getting lifted off your board by spit and landing back on it, or having your board track out because all that energy is lifting the tail out. He's a classic dude, eh? Probably the most incredible feeling I've ever had is where you actually get behind the foam ball, where the lip is landing, that creates a little void in the water, and you can actually get your board on that, and it will just pull you right through the barrel. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to react. You don't have to move. Once you do, you get on this track, and you're on cruise control, on autopilot, and that you don't have to do a lot. The wave will pull you along at its own speed. It feels like there's a rope on the nose of my board pulling me along. That's Kelly Slater being in the moment, baby.
I mean, that's just one example of these things that Kelly told Sean. And Sean had sent me an email and said, by the way, I just got off a 2-hour Zoom with Kelly for the book. And me being like a starstruck, like, wait a minute, you're actually interviewing Kelly for the book. It was incredible. And there are a couple things I want to sort of reference to you. So this, what we know Sean and his mates for doing this, sort of pioneering this radical modern day style. I mean, Kelly really took it to the next spot, which you say. You sort of reference their surfing BK and surfing AK. Sort of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I definitely think that that he changed surfing fundamentally. And I'm not talking about Kelly Slater superstar. I'm talking about Kelly Slater, hardcore surfer, innovator, creativity. Certainly the way he rode at Pipeline. I mean, you had guys like Gerry and myself backside and some other guys, and then you had Mike Stewart, this amazing bodyboarder who came onto the scene in like 80 or 81, and he was the first guy that actually took off under the lip, first boogie boarder, but the first surfer to actually do that, to take off right under the lip, exactly what the guys are doing today in surfing, which I thought was revolutionary at the time. First guy to take off under the lip and bury that rail on the takeoff, right at the top of the wave, which was, when I first saw that, I went, wow, that is a complete revolution. So the way he rode in the tube at Pipeline and the whole way that he was so relaxed under pressure and so connected to nature, it was really, he's absolutely a gifted individual. I watched him in a final, and I write about it in the book. He was against Andy Irons, one of the greatest surfers of that generation as well. And Andy had won the final, and there was like a minute to go. Kelly needed like a 9.3, I think, which 9.3, it's a big score at Jeffrey's Band. Rabbit Bartholomew, one of my old rivals, and I are sitting overlooking the point, and we see this wave come through, and Kelly's got like a minute to go, and he lets it go by. And then another wave comes through, and he lets it go by, and another wave comes through, and somehow with 5 seconds he takes off and he gets like a 9.7 and wins the contest. And Andy's on the beach like this. And I mean, I couldn't believe it, and I asked him afterwards. I said, Kelly, what were you thinking? I mean, you let 2 waves go by and got the third. And he said, Sean, I was exhausted. He said, I had no more energy. I'd been surfing, we've been competing all day. He said, and then this dolphin came by me, and I followed the dolphin, and it took me to where I needed to be. How about that? I mean, what competitor in any sport in the whole bloody world is going to follow a dolphin?
It's and it's one story. And you get one sort of story after another like that. I want to, just because you just mentioned it, the creativity in competition. There was, I think Gerry chose not to compete. Tom Curren, who's not here tonight.
No, Gerry competed. Gerry won the Pipe Masters a few times. He was a gnarly competitor.
Okay, well, there we go. But all right, well, it's this idea, I think, that you sort of say, there's a tug of war between competitive surfing and free surfing. Surfing is an artistic and soulful endeavor, unencumbered by rules, points, and judging, compared with surfing as a means to achieve victory over an opponent. Some think of competition as mechanistic, without creativity. But Kelly sees his path differently. I just want to, that you really talk about the creativity that Kelly found in competition when many didn't. You competed, you found it as well. Just talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Kelly doesn't think of competition in the way that most people think of competition as some form of process to win. He thinks of it as a creative outlet. And, the way he competes is with he just competes differently. He sees, when you chat with him, there's sort of multiple layers there. And, I've never thought of competition as being creative. I've always thought of it, you want to win, you want to blast, you want to beat your competitor up. But he sees it as like an art form. I mean, like the way Gerry surfs, art form, outside of competition, the best guy's art form, Michael February. But his art is competitive art. I mean, it's so rare where you have a fusion between competition and art. I don't think any other surfer has ever competed or thought about competition that way, to fuse art and creativity in a competitive scenario, ever.
It's funny. I mean, the fact that he would follow a dolphin in a competition is sort of perfect example of that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
I'm going to ask our host for this evening, Jim Kempton, to read a bit. I just want to say, so Jim Kempton wrote about his friend sitting next to him, this guy, Gerry Lopez. You had a story you want to tell about your buddy here. And I'm just going to, Jim constructed this story in a really phenomenal way where he somehow weaves past and present moments together. On the evening of the California Surf Museum annual gala, where Lopez is being honored, Kempton interweaves the highlights of Lopez's career with the events of the evening, bringing past and present together in 9 parts about the 9 lives of Gerry Lopez. All right, Jim Kempton, read us a little bit.
Okay, well, I would like to just say something about Kelly, because we've been talking about him all night, and he brought up something that I thought that Sean was going to say and he didn't. But one of the things that I've watched, as we all have been observers of these great surfers, and the thing that I saw in Kelly that no one else that I'd ever seen had was his understanding of what it took to win the heat. So someone could have a 7, and so Kelly would need a 7-1. And Kelly would not ride a wave that wasn't a 7-point wave, because he knew he wouldn't get a 7-point score. And there would be waves coming in, just like you were talking about. They'd go by and they'd go by. And everyone on the beach, thousands of people on the beach are screaming, "Go, go, go!" And Kelly's just sitting there, because Kelly understood. And I learned this because the guy who came in second to him twice, Taj Burrow, was a phenomenal surfer, but he would need a 7. and a 6-point wave would come, and he would take it, and he would rip to shreds, and he'd get a 6-6. I mean, he did better than anything you could possibly do on a 6-point wave, but he wasn't going to get that 7. But Kelly knew that he had to get his reading of what that wave that he needed to win on was uncanny. And so many times he won exactly like Sean was describing in the last 10 seconds of the heat after wave had gone by, because then he saw that's the 7 I need right there. And he would take it, and he didn't ride it any better than Taj rode his, but it was a 7-point wave. And he would win the heat. He won more heats in the last 20 seconds of the bell than any other surfer I've ever seen. And that really was, to me, such a phenomenal mental, you said he competes differently, and that's what I think it is. He just has that uncanny knack. Anyway.
Amazing. It's incredible to get all these insider perspectives.
I can tell
A story about
story too.
Yeah, by all means.
You weren't there this time, but Randy Rarick, asked me and Rory if we'd go out and do an exhibition at one of the Pipe Masters, and I go, okay, what do you want us to do? He goes, okay, well, you'll paddle out in a 2-man heat with Kelly and Shane, and just don't get in their way. And I go, okay. And there was some good waves. I mean, it was like solid 8 feet, and so okay, Kelly's on the beach, he's getting ready to go, and I'm going, oh shit. And so we jump in the water together and start paddling out, and I go, where the hell's Rory? And Rory's nowhere to be found. He's down at Aukai waiting for the jet ski to take him out. He doesn't want to paddle out. So we're paddling out, and Kelly's on my left, so he's deeper than I am, and here comes this set. And I'm going, holy shit, we're going to get caught inside. And I'm paddling for my life, and I'm paddling as hard as I can. And I go to duck dive this wave, and just what Sean said, Kelly's right next to me. He turns around and takes off and makes it. And I'm just going, all right. I better head for the glue factory. But that's Kelly.
All right, well, let's talk about Gerry now. Let's talk
All right.
about you. Yes, here we go.
So I didn't pick this. Claudia did, and I just have to say that, one of the writer's tricks, if you will, is to set up a story so that the reader wants to read the rest of it. So this is what this is. It isn't what it sounds like in the beginning, but I've known Gerry since at least 1977, and whether he denies it or not, he carries a mystique about him that no other surfer, save Mickey Dora, has ever equaled. The man you meet has a way of being strategic and disarming. Lopez, and I say this with the utmost respect, he's an incredibly calculating and shrewd man, Matt Warshaw says. You only ever see what he wants you to see, when and where he wants you to see it, which makes him, in this live stream tell-everything age, all the more attractive. He is the last mysterious man in surfing. There's more. The public image of Gerry Lopez, the shy, self-effacing, humble Hawaiian soul monster, the surf god with a Midas touch, turning everything that grazed his perfectly positioned fingers into gold, has always seemed too good to be true. For anyone with Gerry's fame, there are always rumors, stories, instances where tactics and decisions could be considered suspect. I'd always heard that he was a ruthless man in the takeoff zone, burning other surfers on waves, especially at Pipeline. That had been confirmed by many of my close friends who'd surf pipe. When his partners at surfboards maker Lightning Bolt became entangled in a corporate power struggle, other parties in the imbroglio told me he had sold out his shares to the highest bidder, burned the guys who had brought him the opportunity to originally, and left his partners hanging out to dry. I wanted to explore these questions, even if the evidence put a blemish on the sacred Gerry Lopez chronicle that had been slowly turned into gospel. Certainly, there was more than meets the eye. But first, let's meet the eye.
All right. So let's meet the eye for a second. The 9 lives you talk about, let's just sort of share what those are. I mean, if you want to riff on them, or if you remember what they are, or do you want me to kind of hint you?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so it's surfer, writer, shaper, shop owner, business owner, actor, wave scout, friend, snowboarder, sort of more than 9. But the saying "a cat has 9 lives," and that's how you've constructed this story, is an idiom that meaning cats are incredibly lucky and resilient, seemingly able to survive dangerous situations that would harm other animals. It's a way of saying they have a great chance of bouncing back from adversity. While cats are known for their agility to land on their feet, they only have one life just like any other animal. Do you think this ability to survive what could be a disastrous situation is good luck, or, as you quote Matt Morshaw, Lopez, and I say this with the utmost respect, is incredibly calculating and shrewd? What do we attest these 9 lives staying on his feet to?
Well,
or on his board?
I believe that everyone who's ultimately successful has some luck in their program. You can't win with a handful of different suits. I mean, somewhere along the line, you have to get dealt some aces, 3 or 4, and so I always try to take that into consideration. But if you've ever played poker, you know that really it's not about the hand you get dealt; it's about how you play the hand. And I just think that Gerry, at the risk of sounding ethnic, Gerry is part Japanese and he's part Cuban. So he has this incredible kind of connection DNA that has the calculating mind and the incredible charm that you think about either side of that, and it fits on both sides. And so I think what Gerry's been able to do through all of it, because one of the things that I point out is everyone thinks Gerry lived a charmed life, but that's not really the case. What he's done is he's like a cat. He's landed on his feet, and he's kept from falling through on the stakes when he gets tossed off the roof. And he's been tossed off the roof a couple of times. Once with a fin, right where you would never want a fin to go. So, and that's the odds, And Gerry knows that. He's played that, and ultimately come out, winning a lot more hands than he's lost. But I think it's really important because so many people see someone like Gerry, and there's an idolatry there because of only what they see is the part that's out front. But there's a lot to Gerry that no one appreciates, and the incredible amount of discipline that he puts in to make things look effortless. And so that's what I mean when I say the cat of 9 lives.
Amazing. All right, last but not least, here on the end, Chad Nelson, CEO of Surfrider. Wrote the afterword to the book. Surfrider is actually our charitable partner on the book, so a proceed of sales is going to Surfrider. Every book at Regalo Press that published the book has a charitable partner, and when I was doing a book on surfing, it was kind of a no-brainer. Surfrider would have to be our partner, and they really have been a strategic partner as well. Surfrider, I'm just going to quickly say, Surfrider Foundation is a nonprofit grassroots organization dedicated to the protection and enjoyment of our world's oceans, waves, and beaches for all people through a powerful activist network. I'm going to ask Chad to read a little bit of his afterword.
Yeah, so when I submitted this first draft of this to Claudia, she responded and she said, well, it sounds a little bit too much like Gerry Lopez's story.
It was uncanny, I have to tell you.
And I immediately realized I was on the right track.
Exactly. And I'm going to echo that. It's this bookend. I couldn't believe it, like how waves are formed. It literally takes you from one side of the globe to the other. And without that happening, nobody's surfing, and that's really more critical than ever when you put it in the context of ocean preservation, how waves are formed. It's really a powerful ending. So I'm going to let you read a little bit of that.
Every surfer in the world can close their eyes and visualize a perfect wave. The surface is glassy and the wave is breaking down the line quickly and steadily. The wave is steep and barreling with the wind rushing up its face, creating a light iridescent spray as the lip curls and cascades over. It may break like that for 60 seconds if it's an incredibly long wave, although most waves last less than 15 seconds. Each surfer in this book has a unique story, a journey of a lifetime dedicated to these fleeting moments, to finding and riding their own version of the perfect wave. For those of us fortunate enough to have found them, those precious few seconds of transcendence are seared into our minds forever. One of the things that makes the experience of surfing so special is that those moments, like a flickering flame, are ephemeral and can never be repeated again. That unique energy signature, that confluence of specific meteorological conditions, you can never ride the same wave twice, and truly great surfable waves are exceedingly rare. There are approximately 1.5 million miles of coastline in the world, with waves breaking on them 8,600 times every day. And yet, good surfing waves are very uncommon. And world-class waves are so scarce that most surfers know their names and locations by heart. It takes a perfect set of geomorphic, oceanographic, and meteorological circumstances to align to create a great wave. First, you need energy from a storm to create a consistent swell over open ocean. That swell must be bent, focused, and then broken in just such a way to create a wave that breaks and peels along its crest at the perfect speed, not too fast, not too slow, with a steepness that accelerates the surfer, maybe even steep enough to break over the surfer and form a tube. The wind must be calm or light offshore, and the tide must be just right. Some waves do this somewhat consistently, others seasonally, and others only on very rare occasions. Great surfing waves are incredibly sensitive to change. Changes in the bottom topography, modifications to the shore, loss of sediment supply, or offshore structures can all impact the quality of waves. Sometimes for the better, like the wedge, but most often for the worse, like Killer Dana. Not to mention impacts from polluted water or the ability to access these places by the public. Further, I would argue that surfing in a wild, healthy ocean and communing with nature enhances the overall experience. Even better, every wave on the planet is a public commons. Nobody owns them, and they are a natural resource for everyone to share and enjoy.
It really was such the perfect afterword to the book and the evening, frankly, that summarizes why every surfer surfs. It's the allure of these beautiful waves. As I mentioned, more important in the context of ocean preservation. And just tell us a little bit right now about some of the efforts you're making, why it's so critical at this moment in time, what Surfrider's doing.
Yeah, and before that, I also want to thank Sean Thompson. Surfrider celebrated our 40th anniversary last year. We were founded in 1984, and Sean was the first ambassador of the Surfrider Foundation. Do a good turn daily, and has been active that entire 40 years until today. So
everyone has to become a member.
Yeah, please join. There's power in numbers. No, I mean this. I don't want to get too political, but this is a scary time for ocean protection. NOAA, the National Ocean and Atmosphere Administration, which is the United States Ocean Agency, does the weather service, provides all the data that we use at Surfline to figure out if the waves are going to be good tomorrow, is measuring and monitoring the health of our oceans. It's being drastically cut. We've got climate change impacting our coasts. We can see this at our beaches. They're narrowing. And there's solutions to all these problems, but we need good science. We need good agencies, and those are the things that are being cut back right now. The good news is, and we saw this with the Park Service, when people make noise, these things are being added back. So I implore all of you to speak out, speak for the Weather Service, speak for NOAA. And last, I, as a good activist always is, I wouldn't show up without something for you guys to do.
Oh.
And the other thing is the California Coastal Commission is the most powerful and effective coastal conservation organization in the world. It's why California's coastline is so extraordinary. If you visited Florida, you know how good we've got it. They're also they're the ones who helped us save Trestles and save Sano and save Malibu. They're currently under threat. So we have a Love Our Beach campaign. If you want to send a postcard in to the governor and tell him you care about our coastlines, come see me. I'll hand you a postcard.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. And last, like Sean said, join Surfrider. It's $25 a year. There's power in numbers. There's 3 million surfers in the United States. If 1 in 10 join Surfrider, we'd be such a powerful force. We could protect every coastline in America. So I encourage you to join us.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to thank this incredible group here. I want to thank you personally for being a part of the book, personally for coming here tonight, and personally for sharing these incredible stories. We're going to let you all ask a few questions. I don't know how much time we have, but this man raised his hand right there. Yes.
I have a question for Sean, and I'm sure if anyone surfed in the 70s, you'll remember the wave where Sean's at back door, and he's in the barrel, and then MR drops in on him. Okay, so I saw this. I don't know why I saw it about a month ago, but then about a week ago, I saw a video, and it said, surfing the North Shore in the 70s, and it shows the both of you pulling in the barrel, riding, kicking out, and it's like this amazing wave. And then it shows a video of the same thing happening now, and it shows these two guys pulling into the barrel, and then the one guy just pounding on the other guy. And I just wanted the question I wanted to ask you, what was your reaction when MR shared the wave with you, and you guys both made it out? Because he's Aussie, you're Zapper, South African, so what was it like?
Yeah, well, I must say I've never pounded a guy in the water for surfing. Well, I've been smacked a couple times, a few times in Hawaii. But on that particular wave, so that wave was actually a bit of a misunderstanding, according to Mark and I suppose myself. So we're out at Off the Wall, and it's sort of the day of the year. Mark Richards has just introduced his twin fin, which was an incredible revolution in surfing. One of the key revolution spots of maybe the 5 revolution spots in surfing. And I was out on my single fin. I just won the world title, so I was feeling pretty good about myself. And I took off on a wave, and Mark dropped in on me. And I spun out because we never used to drop in on each other. We had absolute respect. I'd never dropped in on Mark in my life, and he'd never dropped in on me until this day. And, all the cameras on the beach, and I'm fuming, going, how can he drop in on me? So the very next wave, I drop in on him. Very next wave, I paddle straight out and drop in on Mark. Yeah, I'll teach you. And now, afterwards, Mark tells me that he didn't see me. He didn't know he'd dropped in on me. All he saw was Sean Thompson dropping on him. So now he's determined to drop in on me. So the set, really good set comes in, I'm paddling into it, and I see Mark Richards paddling towards me with like smoke coming out of his ears, and I'm going, it's going to be on here, it's going to be on. So as I swing around and take off, he takes off, and he's going to stuff me in the pit. Now, this is funny, and no one knows this. I had watched Gerry Lopez and Rory Russell on a wave like a few winters before, and I can't remember who was dropping in on who. It was either Gerry dropping in on Rory or Rory. I think it was Rory. Rory used to drop in more than anyone. Yeah. He was quite a dropper inner. So it was Rory dropping in on Gerry, and as Rory dropped down, and just before he did his bottom turn, Gerry did his bottom turn. So he came up higher on the face. I went, ooh, I know the technique now. The slide dog has taught me the technique. So when Mark took off, and as we hit the bottom, I pulled the turn, Gerry Lopez style, just before Mark, and managed to get up higher on the face. Also, I was on a single fin, and a single fin could track higher than on the face than the twin. and I managed to pull up behind him, and then we both got tubed and we got blown out, and Mark thought he'd lost me on the turn. And as we came out, I went, woo, and he looked behind me, and for Mark, for me it was a great moment. For Mark, not such a good moment. So thank Gerry Lopez.
All roads lead back to Mr. Lopez, I think. Anyone else have a question? No one? No one? Wow. All right, I guess we answered them all. Well, I think we're going to do some book signings, I believe.
I know we ran out of books, and if anyone is thinking about getting a book or wants to get their autographs, I've got some cardstock here that you can at least get their autographs while you're here and slip it inside your book later. So trying to take care of that. So anyway, these are up here.
One last question, the journalist and me. Can we get all the
Together.
authors up? Can we all get a picture, including you?
Take that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Very nice to talk about, okay, let's see if we can ride one together. And if I was in front, I could ride a little higher and he could make it. So when he was in front, it always fell out.
Okay, everyone's going to be coming up here for autographs, but if we just keep them a tight group to get a photo. You can keep that, Sean. You can keep it on.
Yeah, but for the picture doesn't look so good.
Oh.
Let's
I
get
don't know, all my
together
Ghost
for a
Wave
picture.
guys get theirs on.
Huh?
All my Ghost Wave guys get
Oh,
theirs on.
okay.
Stay up here for autographs, so you're welcome to sit. Welcome to sit, and we'll have people. Let me grab this.
I'm embedded here.
Okay, yeah, I'm coming